Hi, I'm Vicki Abelson, and this is The Road Taken, and this is my wing woman. Announce yourself.
I'm Louise Palanker, Vicki's wing woman.
I hate that. I'm still looking for the right...
But I just printed the business cards. You keep changing it.
I hate wing woman. I hate sidekick. It's all wrong, Louise. It's all wrong. But Louise isn't wrong. Louise is right.
Co-pilot?
My co-pilot. Don't even talk about pilots.
President?
We're not going to pilots. Vice president. Okay. We're not running though. So
25th Amendment.
So before we get going, I want to thank our sponsors and sometimes it's work to do that, but in this case it's a privilege.
It's joy.
And it's
pure
joy and it's friendship, because Rick Smolke of Quick Impressions of Chicago is the most creative, fantastic printer. He does all these cool things for me.
Look all the fun stuff you get.
He didn't print my book, but he did do the galley. And I'm gonna give one of those to Doug.
I'm
gonna give that to Doug. Yeah. Okay. So anyway, so he did all my stuff, and he's fantastic. And actually, somebody heard him on the Road Taken, heard about him on the Road Taken, and called him, and she wrote to me and thanked me because she said he gave her such a great deal. So he'll do that for you too. And then also, I want to give a shout out to Nicole Venables, who is my hair tresser.
Okay.
And she tresses the hair of many movie stars and television stars, and she's really cool, and she has a salon called the Ruby Begonia Salon. She's fabulous. She's in Studio City. If you're in LA, if you're not, I'm sorry. But there are good hairdressers everywhere.
So one thing you can't do on the internet is get a haircut.
You cannot.
I've tried.
You can get printed goods ordered and sent to you, but you cannot. You must be in LA to get your hair cut by Nicole, or visit. Come for a visit and have your hair done. So anyway, so let's talk about the week. So Samantha and my daughter Samantha is in from behind the camera. Thank you, Samantha. She's grudgingly shooting us right now.
She's under the weather.
She's a little under the weather. She'd rather not be doing this, but I only have her for 9 more days. This is torture for me. Then she's gone till May. And I never know when it's the last trip. She's going to be home and stay home for a chunk of time, because it's getting to that age in her life. But anyway, I got her now. So we've been going to screenings out,
affairs and events.
We've been going to screenings out the ass.
Yeah.
So last night we saw I, Tonya. Ooh, and I have to tell you, I was not expecting to fall madly. I had no idea that they were going to break the fourth wall. I had no idea that it was going to be so funny. I had no idea that I was going to have empathy for these people. Allison Janney is... I didn't know the night before when I saw the Golden Globes why the hell that bird was on her shoulder, but I know now.
Okay.
And she is brilliantly hysterical. But, Margot Robbie, I love these women who are empowering themselves to make their own movies.
Would you like to hear a backstage Hollywood story?
I would.
My friend, Sarah Kawahara, who's married to my comedian friend, Jamie Alcroft, she choreographed the entire Tonya Harding skating routine.
Wow. It was unbelievable. And how they sunk Margot skating and whoever was doing it was amazing. But the movie is hysterical, and so I really have a lot of empathy now. I have a whole different feeling about Tonya Harding.
Everyone has a story.
I used to think that that Tonya rigged the whole thing. I used to think it was all her fault. I don't think so much anymore.
She got caught up in something.
So we went to that, and then so all of these screenings we've been going to, all the people have been there. So we got to see them all last night, which was fantastic, including the writer and the director, who both brilliant, amazing work on both their parts. So the night before that, we saw, what did we see the night before?
Stranger Things.
We went to a Stranger Things screening. Now we went because we've gone before, but they were all going to be there except for a couple of them, and Paul Reiser was there. And I have to say, on that whole panel of 15, 16 people, Paul got the jokes. He got the laughs. He was so funny.
He's a comedian.
But that was really cool, and they were all there. And then the night before that, we saw
2 nights before that,
we saw Lady Bird.
Darkest Hour.
Oh, okay. All right. This is what my point is for tonight.
Yeah.
So we saw Darkest Hour and Gary Oldman did the talkback afterwards. A few nights before that, we had seen The Disaster Artist, and James Franco was there. And we also saw Lady Bird and Greta. I'm going to say her name wrong. Gerwig. Yes. was there, and Timothy Chalamet, who Samantha got
So
to chat
cute.
with.
Yeah.
Ooh, did you see the pictures?
I did.
Oh yeah, I think so. She has my permission to marry him.
They were having a mind meld.
They were. He jumped off the stage to talk to her, and he was like in her face. It was the cutest thing ever. Because he went to NYU, and he was what is it called, Gallatin, and where you have like independent study. And he's told her he's going to have to get back and do that, but. For now, he seems to be doing pretty well.
Seems, yeah.
But so anyway, so back-to-back nights, we saw James Franco present The Disaster Artist, and then we saw Gary Orr come out afterwards, and then we saw Gary Oldman after The Darkest Hour. Now, I have to say, in all fairness, The Darkest Hour is kind of dark.
Kind of dark.
So, okay, so maybe Gary gets a few points off of that, but you know, James Franco came out, and he had so much passion, and so much joie de vivre, and so much enthusiasm for his project. And then Gary Oldman came out, and if that man smiled once in a half hour, and then I said to Samantha, okay, so maybe he's just tired. He's been doing a lot of this stuff. I have seen pictures of him doing the press junkets prior, and he seemed like a lovely guy. Tracy Newman met him, got a nice picture with him smiling from a couple months ago. Maybe he's just tired. I said, but you know, tomorrow he's going to be on the Golden Globes, and he'll probably win, and if he wins a Golden Globe, maybe then that'll give him his joy back. He'll smile.
So
No,
what
he
happened?
didn't smile at the Golden Globes.
Did he win?
He did win.
Okay.
And the thing is, and so did James Franco, and so now they're going to battle it out for an Oscar. And, you know, I was sure that Gary Oldman, I'm still pretty sure that Gary Oldman's going to be the one that's going to win the Oscar, but I have to say I'm being influenced by James Franco's passion and his joy.
Are you
at the
a
work that he's
voter?
doing. I am a sad voter.
So this
and
is influencing your vote.
I have to say,
Gary Oldman, you got a campaign, buddy?
it's influencing my vote, and
Okay.
the work should speak for itself. But I mean, I can't really fault James Franco's work. It's pretty brilliant genius. But Gary Oldman has left sort of a dark taste in my mouth with just this dour. And there have been a few people at these screenings that don't seem to be enjoying what they're doing. And if you're not enjoying what you're doing, don't do it.
Oh, darn.
Okay,
That's-
so this brings me to our guest tonight, because
Okay.
I read this quote by him today, which really made me very happy. Wait, he likened himself to, our guest tonight is Doug Herzog. So for those of you in the business, you all know who that is. For those of you who aren't in the business and want to be in the business, you better know who that is. You should know who that is. Okay, so Doug was the president of Viacom. So we're talking MTV, VH1, Comedy Central, Epix, Logo, right? Okay.
CBS? No? Oh.
So, and what Doug did was he created The Daily Show. And if this is urban legend, I don't know if it's true, but he said something like, we should have a Daily Show. And then it became The Daily Show. And he's the one, I know, Craig Kilborn, actually, my husband, Samantha's husband, Samantha's father, my ex-husband, Jon Stewart was on this thing called Short Attention Span Theater. Do you remember that?
Yes.
And John, he was fantastic. And as soon as we saw him on there, we knew he was going to be a star. And Gabe, I think John might have taken a couple of Gabe's stand-up classes actually before the day. And Gabe got to substitute for John on Short Attention Span Theater. But anyway, it was Doug who, and Gabe wrote for Craig Kilborn. So it's all very incestuous. But Craig Kilborn started on The Daily Show, and I loved him on The Daily Show.
Yeah.
But when he went to his own show, not so much. But then when John took over, which Doug did, I mean, do we have to talk Genius Moves? I mean, come
yeah.
on. So, and then
I mean, very influential in terms of not just entertainment, but
the news.
everything.
The
Yes.
news, the world.
How people get
Influencing-
their information.
And influencing voters and all kinds, yes, and how people get their information, absolutely. And Doug was also at the helm of the Colbert Report, or Colbert Report.
Rapport.
And
It's very French, this title.
Inside Amy Schumer, The Real World's on MTV, Beavis and Butthead. I can't even talk about all the credits. There's so many credits, it's ridiculous. He's in the broadcasting and Cable Hall of Fame. Just done all this stuff. But this quote that I love, he likened himself to a camp counselor. And he said, I try to be... many of you know that I am a camp counselor at heart. I try to be a little of that to the work, bring a little of that to the workplace every day. Lead the group, play to win, and have fun doing it. I mean, that's everything.
Yeah.
Because if we're not having fun, it shows.
Yeah, Gary Oldman.
So Harry, my son, was saying something like, or were you telling me that everybody is tweeting something like, Timothy Chalamet?
Oh, that was me.
Okay,
It said like Timothy Chalamet, brilliant actor, brilliant person. Gary, old man.
Wow.
Because they're up for the same awards.
Okay.
So yeah, that was kind of cruel. But
Well, it's Churchill, sort of, I guess.
yeah, Churchill. But and Churchill, and the movie is serious, and Churchill was serious, although Churchill was actually very funny.
I'm sure he could cut up at a party.
And he was actually very funny going through the war room in World War II. But what I will say about Gary Oldman for a second is the performance is absolutely genius.
Yeah.
He doesn't look like Churchill. What he did, he wouldn't gain weight for the part because he said it'll take him the rest of his life to lose it. So it was all done through makeup, and I don't remember the name of the makeup artist, but it's some genius who had retired, and he lives near Gary Oldman, and Gary stalked the guy till he said yes. But the punches and stuff, I can see latex a mile away. I couldn't see a thing. It's brilliant. It's just geniusly done, and Gary embodies Churchill. It's extraordinary. He's extraordinary, and he deserves an Oscar. I'll get over myself. But let's get back to Doug. So
Doug
loves what he does, and there's another quote I want to shout out here, because this is the road taken. And for those of you who don't know, the purpose of this show, Celebrity Maps to Success, is for us to kind of figure out what our guests have done to have the success they've had, so that we can get some tools from them and apply them to our own lives. So Doug kind of says it right out front. We've got the takeaway before we
don't
even
really
start.
even need
we
him.
don't need it. So the takeaway here: you got to work hard, you got to be smart, you got to be talented, and you got to be a little lucky. And I'm just going to add to that, and you got to have some fun. You got to have some fun. So we're about to have some fun. We're gonna. Doug's got to have stories. He's got to have stories. We want stories. People have asked me if I'm going to dig. Oh, I'm going to dig. So right now we're going to bring out our guest. Please help me welcome Doug Herzog. Yay!
Thank you.
In our gorilla. Hi, Doug. Thank you. It took poor Doug. We did the opening, and we had a little fun with you. We were talking about all the things that you've done, and that you were late.
Yeah.
But it took Doug 2 hours to get here in his defense, so it's not you're forgiven that.
Yeah, I don't know. It might be that everything that's going on in the 101. It's a little crazy tonight.
But the 101 is because it's coming down from Santa Barbara, and it's
all backed up, I think.
Louise has a house in Santa Barbara,
Oh.
and her husband's stuck up there. The 101's closed for.
Everybody okay out there?
My people are okay, but
All right.
A lot of people aren't, right?
There's still 17 people missing.
Right.
Oh,
So-
yeah.
Really?
Yeah, it's absolutely chilling. That's what happened.
Oh, yeah. So yes, it was a nightmare getting here. I'm sorry.
It's all right. We're here. We're doing it.
But I'm glad
We're here,
you're
yeah,
here.
sure.
Okay, so we haven't had on the road taken to date
Right.
somebody, what I would call a suit, but you're a creative suit, right? You love music.
It's a suit, executive, yeah.
Well, you are. I
Yeah.
mean, and we haven't had the guy who's the one green line. By the way, you might be the one that killed my dreams, because I was in a live pilot at the Comedy Central space called Hollywood Anonymous with Robert Schimmel and Andy Kindler and Eddie Pepitone and
Well, that doesn't ring a bell, so I'm going to say that was either just
Good.
before I got there,
Okay.
or I was at Comedy Central twice, so it might have been in the window where in between.
All right, I'm saying it was that.
Nice
It
save,
was-
Doug.
It killed.
I love Schimmel, he was great.
He was so
Yeah.
brilliant. This was very, very funny. It was like a 12-step program for people in Hollywood. It was very, very funny.
Yeah.
And that's a great space.
Cool space, yes.
I just got invited to do the sit and spin there, so that's exciting.
Oh,
Looking
all right.
forward to that. So okay, so you're a suit,
Right.
But you're a creative suit because you love music. You have an eye for talent. So where did it start for you? So where'd you grow up?
Grew up in Paterson, New Jersey, which is northern New Jersey, 15 miles outside of New York City, barely, maybe 10.
Yeah.
And, like Sopranos country, as I tell people who are not from that part of the world. I knew those people.
Yeah.
And school in Boston, Emerson College. which tiny little school with a big reputation.
Yes,
although
it
was even smaller then and less of a reputation.
What would you study? What was your major?
I wanted to study at the time they called it communications. But in those days, in the 70s, it was not a thing.
No,
film school was not a thing. Studying media or television was not a thing. I remember talking to my grandmother. She said, "What are you going to study?" I said, "I'm going to study television." And she thought that meant I was going to be able to fix her TV. So it was just, it just wasn't a thing like it is today. Kids go and
Well, where did that dream start? So you're a little
watch
kid.
A lot of TV.
Okay, when you're a little kid, what's the first dream? What do you want to be when you grow up? When you're little?
I think I want to be a sportscaster.
Oh, that's what my son wants to be.
Yeah.
He wants to be. Okay.
Yeah, I think that's what I wanted. I love sports and I love TV, and I think I want to be a sportscaster.
Okay, so how did the dream morph into?
I watched some. My parents, talked about, way into my career, like, we were really worried you watched a lot of TV. we were worried, and it's a good thing there were only 3 channels and there wasn't much on, because I probably, if there was cable television or even the internet when I was growing up, I probably would have left the house. But I
was
loved
right
it.
there. Okay, so favorite shows as a kid?
I watched everything that was on, but I loved the Norman Lear shows. I loved MASH. I loved the Honeymooners. I mean, I loved you would watch whatever was on, and the big thing, the big moment for me was Saturday Night Live. So that was like a revelation. When that came on, I was like, oh my god, they're making kind of dangerous jokes, stuff my parents wouldn't like. There's really cool music on here. These seem like the coolest people in the world. They're in New York City. I mean, I was in high school. I was like, that's like I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So so when you have this dream about being in communications, being in TV, what did that look like at the beginning?
Again, in those days, we were so unsophisticated. Kids to now, your daughter, whoever. I mean, my kids' friends. They know so much about the business. They see so much about the business. There's stuff everywhere about the business. It's mainstream. In those days, I didn't know anybody who was in show business, and my family didn't know anybody who was in.
Really?
We're from Paterson, New Jersey. Like, who knew? And there were 3 networks and a couple of Hollywood studios, and that was it.
Right.
And so it was a very foreign thing. So. I didn't know I didn't know the difference between a director or a producer or an agent or a manager, and I just know I liked that. Looked like fun. I wanted to be part of it.
And did you know you wanted to be on the business side of it, or
not necessarily? I think I think if you read my high school yearbook, it says film. What do you want to be? It says film director. So I think at the time I thought I probably wanted to be like Woody Allen or Robert Altman.
Nice.
It was like spent a lot of time in the movie theaters. Like all of a sudden these guys became important, and I began to understand who directors were and what they meant, and but.
Did you study that at all?
No, not really. I didn't really do a lot of film. I took a couple of film courses, and very quickly I was like, this takes too long.
Okay, so TV's more.
TV was more, and that was my right instinct, and that's me in general. And I'm like, I don't have time to. First of all, I can't load the film. I'm always screwing it up. It takes too long, and I quickly just was like TV.
Okay, so what was the actual major called when you were?
It was communications.
It was
so I studied like TV. You took film courses, TV courses. I did a lot of radio. I was into music, and so it was a little bit of everything. Advertising, marketing. So it was a little bit of everything. It's very sort of a broad thing, not nearly as specific as it is these days, and probably not nearly as good.
So from what I've read, if it's true, you landed at MTV at like 25. So you get out of college. What happens? What's the
super
first thing
lucky in the sense that I graduated college actually graduated like a semester early. So I graduated in January of 1980. I finished in December of 80. I went to work in January of 81, which was, for all intents and purposes, the dawn of cable television.
Oh.
So, CNN I was interning at CNN the summer before, which is when they launched.
Wow.
MTV had yet to go on the air, would go on the air 6 months later. So ESPN had gone on the air. So it was literally like the dawn of cable television. So it was a great time to leave college. All these new networks and cable networks were starting, and they needed young, cheap help. You're right.
Okay, so you interned at CNN. What was the first gig where you were?
So I got a job at CNN. A guy I went to college with who was all of 24 was producing a show for them. CNN. It's hard to remember. Unless you're as old as we are, when CNN started,
that just made me so sad.
when CNN started, nobody knew what it was. It was a big joke. It was like, really, 24-hour news? Like, why would I want that? Nobody knew who Ted Turner was.
Wow,
hardly anybody
hardly
anybody had cable television.
Right.
And it was
Although I remember
it was like
having
it was a
HBO.
startup.
Yeah.
They hired all these sort of veteran news people who had all been thrown on the junk pile because they were alcoholics or drug addicts or sex offenders.
Is that true?
I mean, it was like the rejects from like newspapers, magazines, news radio, local stations. It was certainly in the LA bureau. It was a bunch of misfits, and and a bunch of kids. Yes, actually. So I interned. So when I say I was there the day they launched, I was in the LA bureau. And I was out here. So
because you knew TV, you had to come to LA.
Well, no, this guy who I'd gone to college with had gotten a job producing a nightly 1-hour talk show live every night at 10 o'clock. It's in that office tower that's at the corner of Sunset and Vine. Used to Simply Blues used to be at the top. Remember that? Yeah. And we used to, basically, the version of what we're doing here, which is like 2 ENG cameras, like news cameras, that would come in off the field every day that didn't match and shoot out the window. And we would do this live show every night trying to convince people to come to Hollywood to be on a cable show, which they didn't understand. But, but here's what I remember. Tom Hanks, star of Bosom Buddies, would come up all the time. Gary Shandling would come up all the time.
Wow.
Pee Wee Herman would come up all the time. I mean, they were all not famous.
Right.
What was the name of the show?
It had a couple different things. So I first worked. The first host was a New York television host. If you lived in the metropolitan area, you would know a guy named Lee Leonard.
Yeah, I remember Lee Leonard.
He hosted Midday Live in New York and also Sports Extra. And he was big here online. Then Ted Turner got rid of him, and then he hired Mike Douglas, who had lost his job at Westinghouse at the big talk show for years. Right. John Davidson took over.
That's where
Nobody
I
remembers
worked.
Davis,
I was with John Davidson.
Well, there you go. So Mike was, but it didn't really play to Mike's strengths because it was all interviews and there was no singing and dancing, and so he wasn't very good at it. And then the third guy was a guy named Bill Tush, who was like a guy who worked for Ted for a long time at Turner.
Name sounds familiar. Okay.
And I did that for a couple of years. It was like graduate school. So
while you're there, what are you doing?
Everything. That was the beautiful part of it. There was like 4 or 5 of us.
Okay.
Nobody was over 25. So I mean, as I always say, I used to book the guests, do the pre-interviews, produce the segments. I'd go out in the field. We'd go to parties every night. This was pre-Entertainment Tonight. We'd shoot parties and Talking Heads, and we sort of felt we invented Entertainment Tonight, and we always felt they stole the idea from us. And then I would also get lunch, make coffee, whatever needed to be done. I was 22.
Wow.
And
do whatever it takes. Take away.
But it was also great. I mean, I was actually getting to do real things.
Yeah. It sounds
at a very raw young age. But at the same time, I was also doing it. And like I said, I'm sort of great opportunity, really lucky. It was like sort of right place, right time.
Okay, so you're at CNN. You're doing this for a while. I'm assuming MTV's next. What happened?
No, I worked for a year at Entertainment Tonight.
Oh.
So Entertainment Tonight in the interim had started up. So I was there probably, I don't know, it was probably their second or third year. I was there in like 83, 84.
And what are you doing there?
I was producing music segments. So I would like book all their music stories. And I made it so this is 83, 84. So there was, in 83 was announced there's going to be a Bruce Springsteen album in 84. Now, I was a huge Bruce Springsteen fan. He was just on the verge. This is the album was going to be Born in the USA. And I could kind of feel like he was going to be like the next big thing. Yeah. So I made it, and he had never done a national television interview. So I sort of made it. I was like, I'm going to go get the Bruce Springsteen interview. And I sort of, it was like a year-long campaign. And
okay, so map that out for us a little bit, because I'm curious.
I just went to work. I at CNN, I had made all these contacts in the music industry, because I used to book the music stories there too for the show I was working on. So a guy I befriended who worked at the sort of the label, well, sort of the sister label of the label Bruce was at, but had used to work with Bruce directly at Columbia. He was then at Epic. He started to kind of like, here's who I think you need to talk to, and here's how you got to work it, and here's how they're gonna. and he sort of helped coach me
Did
through
he
it.
have people? Did he have a people machine already, Bruce?
Well, he had John Landau was already there as
Right.
manager, and Barbara Carr was there. They were there. It was 1984, so that's why I had a crack. And I ultimately did, and so I got an interview with Bruce. It was in August of '84. He was opening a huge stand at the Meadowlands Arena in New Jersey, and this was so the album had come out probably in June. It was already like a huge hit, Dancing in the Dark, and he had made his first video. It was like kind of a big deal, and so we got this interview, and basically I scooped MTV. So I got mine a week ahead of MTV, so it was the first one, and I think. That plus a couple of things. I think that's how I came to MTV's attention.
Bruce Springsteen did his first interview on Entertainment Tonight?
No, his first national TV interview. And not only did he do his first national TV interview, he was interviewed by Barbara Howard. I don't know if everyone remembers Barbara Howard.
This is just all too upsetting to me. This is just wrong.
And to this day, I still get a little crap from, what's her name? Who's the woman who, spacing, I'm getting so old. Who used to host the show. We used to get our legs insured. Mary Hart.
Yeah, Mary
I still see Mary Hart every once in a while in the Dodger games, and because he would not talk to Mary Hart.
Oh,
and I
really?
had to break the news to Mary Hart. So
She was a little too straight for him.
she was just a little. Yeah, I mean, look, Entertainment Tonight was not cool at all.
No.
Barbara Howard was I think she was a White House reporter. I mean, she was like.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So she had like she had a little
cred.
gravitas, a little cred. She had no music cred,
Right.
and by that time she was very much a middle-aged lady, and probably not that much cooler than Mary Hart, quite frankly. But she was.
Did she do a good job?
She did do a good job. I also remember. So it was supposed to leave the show the following Monday morning, and Richard Burton died, and it got pushed all the way to the back. But that's what that's showbiz.
That's showbiz.
Anyway, and then MTV literally came calling like within weeks or days.
Is that true?
Oh yeah, by September I was working for MTV.
And it was because of that Bruce interview?
I think it was a combination of things, but I think I was sort of on their radar a little bit for a couple of different reasons, and then that sort of squared it. It was a little bit like, because MTV in 1984, when I got there, was really at its music video peak.
Yeah.
You gotta remember, 1984 was the days of the music video giants. It was giants walking the earth. Bruce Springsteen, Michael J. It was the Born in the USA tour. It was the Jacksons Victory tour. It was Prince's Purple Rain tour.
That's so crazy.
There was Madonna. I mean, it was like Land of the Giants. So MTV was raging at that time.
What year did
MTV started in '81?
And that's Mike Nesmith boat. That's a whole nother thing.
That's a whole other thing.
But and I just want you to know that I went through 4 callbacks as a VJ on MTV for the second round.
There you go.
In the little later 80s. But yeah. But I was already too old. I was like 32. I was already too old.
Oh,
yeah.
Age 32. Come on.
Like, yeah, but they had me go through a whole bunch.
That's
It
pretty good.
was really fun.
Yeah.
Okay, so you get to MTV. What's your position when you get to MTV?
I was brought into MTV to basically start the news department. So I was made news director, and they wanted to start a formal. It's 84, so I'm like 25. So up until then I was quote a producer. So at MTV in those days, believe it or not, in the go-go days of MTV in the early 80s, if you were in any managerial position, directors and up, and I was in director level, all wore suits. Wow. Everybody wore a suit. And which I really was shocked to find.
So you were literally a suit.
I literally said I'd go out and buy suits. I never owned a suit after my bar mitzvah. I never owned a suit in my life. And the thinking, Bob Pittman, who was one of the founder and was running it, obviously, his sort of theory was, they didn't want Madison Avenue, who were desperate for their attention and their money, to think we're all a bunch of hippies. Running like a rock radio station. They want to look like a business. So I wore a suit for many years. Then I have to say, MTV is no longer suits and hasn't been for a long time. Over time, I think I led the I'm going to take off the suit and put on a pair of jeans and a sport jacket and see how that goes. And that happened over time. But for a long time, it was suits.
So you're news director.
Right.
You eventually end up conquering the world over there. So you start out as news director, and first of all, by the way, along the way as you tell us stories, you have to give us a little juice. People are saying to me, get some juice out of Doug, get some good stories. So we need some good stories. But so your news director, how does that morph into you?
Well, the key thing that happened was, so we really started to actually produce news stories in the news department and hire people like Kurt Loder and kind of like, it became a thing. Mm-hmm. You know, before that it was basically just the DJs reading items out of Billboard magazine. And
right.
So we really, we hired.
MTV News was fabulous.
Yeah, it was great. We had a good time. But so there was this point, I don't know, I probably was there a year or two, and they called us into a conference room and they were like, hey, guess what? There was a little bit of like in the world, like the video music, the music video thing is like a fad, it's fading out. And the truth was,
that was later, no?
It's a little bit later. I mean, we're a couple years in now, but what was happening was we were starting to get rated because we were slowly growing distribution, and so as we got into a certain amount of homes, all of a sudden Nielsen was like, now you're rated. So when the ratings came in, they could see that. Every couple of minutes, the ratings would go like this, depending on what video we're playing.
Wow.
So this is not brain surgery. Mm-hmm. Bob Pittman said, look, if people don't like, the Cyndi Lauper video that comes after the Billy Idol video, they turn the channel. People actually did those, and they actually had to get up, turn the channel.
That's right, we did.
But if we do half-hour shows, we can keep them around longer. And so it's not, it's not unlike anybody else or, what's going on in digital media or the whole world. It's like we needed more engagement, right?
Right.
People needed to be engaged for a half hour. So we basically, in a conference room one day, Bob Pittman said to me, he goes, you're going to produce 3 shows. You're going to do a news show, you're going to do a game show, and you're going to do a dance show. So we did this great, I thought great, and I think the audience at the time, game show called Remote Control.
Fantastic.
We did The Week in Rock with Kurt Loder for the news show. And we did Club MTV. And that's how we started into the original. So I became like the original programming guy, and then I became the guy who was in charge of making the shows for MTV, which, by the way, was a very controversial thing. To this day, I will still talk to people who go, hey, how come MTV doesn't play any music, man? I'm like, MTV hasn't played music in 35 years. Where have you been?
It's true.
Are you under a rock?
It's true. The
but people have never forgotten the first 3 years of MTV, which is when they really played music.
Yeah. So you start programming. So what's the first? I mean, Remote Control was a huge success.
They were all great successes, and like I said, it was sort of controversial inside because people were like, we're a music station and we shouldn't be doing shows, and this gets away from the brand, and it just began to grow and evolve and expand, and we did all kinds of different, everything from spring break to the award shows to, I think one of the bigger things was the Real World. Right, so we sort of stumbled. We sort of stumbled upon
real women on here saying that they watched it with their kids, but it was really them.
Yeah,
they
course,
were into it much more than the kids were.
So we sort of stumbled on that, and that was a big hit. Still around.
Yes, it is.
And a lot of people blame that for the reality. And although again, this will show your age or your viewer's age or your listener's age, but people at the time. When we did The Real World, said, oh, that's just a ripoff of An American Family. Mm-hmm. An American Family on PBS about the Loud family, right? Lance Loud. So, and by the way, we certainly was influenced by that. But there's a good story about The Real World. So we tried to do a soap opera. We were like, we're going to do a teen soap opera. And we had a guy developing it, and it was going to be called St. Mark's Place. It would be about a bunch of young kids in the East Village. But we were going to do like a real, like this is like not even Melrose Place. We were going to do like every day, like The Young and the Restless.
Scripted? Okay.
And we're every day. And we hired a woman named Mary Alice Bunham, who was recommended to us by Fred Silverman, legendary producer, executive, who had produced a bunch of soaps for NBC Network. And she was funny. I think of her now. I thought of her then as middle-aged. I'm probably twice as old now as she was then. So, but she was like an adult,
right?
And we were a bunch of kids, and we did this whole process. And here's how dumb and stupid we were. We were literally months into it, and we realized, wait, we can't afford to do this. If we're doing a real soap opera, we have to do it every day, 52 weeks a year. Like, we can't afford that. And in that days, there was no such thing as like limited things, and soap operas were things that were on every day.
Right.
So we took it very literally. Anyway, we shut it down. And about 6 weeks later, Mary Ellis came back with a guy named John Murray, and they said, we think we have your soap opera thing figured out. I'm like, what's that? I said, and they basically pitched the Real World. And what they did is we cast 7 kids. We put them into a New York City loft over the Thanksgiving holiday, so like 4 days. And then we had a crew go in there and literally shoot it with little, at the time, handy cams, you know, personal recorders. And they shot 4 days, and they came up and they edited it all back up, and they showed us this 20-minute tape, and we're like, oh, wow, that looks like a TV show. So, and it was, and it still is.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And then I was the idiot who thought, well, we can only do this once, because the beauty of it was those kids who went to that house, who all became kind of little mini stars in their own way, as all these people do now. They didn't know what to expect. They didn't know that they were going to turn into TV stars. They had zero expectations coming. I go, now every kid that comes into the Real World house is going to be like playing to the cameras because they think or know they're going to be stars, and they're going to be so over the top and so obnoxious and so, you know, intolerable that it's going to be impossible to watch. But guess what? It's the exact opposite. They're so over the top. They're so obnoxious. Everybody wants to watch. And then we've got 20 years of that.
Yeah, that's craziness right there. So you started that whole thing. It's all your fault. The Kardashians are your fault.
I'm not sure about that, but we did get a particular ball rolling. So.
Okay, so you have that going on. Your program director. What do you?
So at this point, I'm probably like running what they call original programming. So I'm running news and the events and the series.
Okay, and so how long does that last, and what does that lead to?
I mean, I was at MTV, for like what I would say is exclusively from like 84 to 95.
Rob Barnett
was there, yeah, yes. Our great friend Rob Barnett, who was in the news department, a great guy, lovely guy. I mean, I've worked with tremendous people, like Ted Demme went on to be a feature film director, Mark Pellington went on to be a feature film director. So many, Pam Thomas, big commercial director and network television. Beth McCarthy, one of the by the way, 2 female directors coming out of MTV, which is also one of the great things about MTV back in those days.
Wow, and also in equal
VJs
as well.
I mean, everywhere. I mean, this is a company that I think probably to this day is actually still more women than men. Great female leaders in it. Judy McGrath. At MTV, Jerry Laybourne, Nickelodeon. Where
is that Bob Pittman? I mean, where did that come from?
I think the culture. It was a tremendous creative culture, and it was not just a bunch of old white guys. By the way, we had our share of white guys, me included. But it was a forward-thinking, progressive culture that certainly as it pertained to sex. I actually shouldn't speak for the women of MTV or the world, but it was a pretty healthy place, I thought, and certainly much healthier than others. So anyhow, it was it was a great place to work. It was, the culture at MTV in general and the creative culture at MTV is the best I've ever experienced.
Wow,
and it's it's important. I mean, anybody who's out there who's trying to do this or wants to do this or wants to be part of something like this, culture is important. And
is it still that way there?
It's changed a lot.
Yeah,
it's changed a lot. I think as it pertains to the rest of the world, it's probably still pretty good, but it was the best at one point. It really was. It was kind of Camelot-like. Yeah. So there was a moment.
Okay, so how does that MTV experience grow into more? What happens?
What happens is, the company was growing, and so there was VH1, there was this or that, the other thing, and cut to the chase, there was Comedy Central, which was a co-venture between, and basically MTV, Viacom, and HBO/Time Warner. So they started.
I didn't know HBO was involved in.
Yeah. So what happened was HBO started Ha, and MTV started the Comedy Channel, and the Comedy War started, and they both were failing, and the cable operators basically got them together and said, look, we don't want 2, we want 1. You guys get together and figure this out. So this co-venture was born. And it sort of bounced around for a couple of years, and then this opportunity came up to... so they were looking for new leadership. I was basically the number 2 guy at MTV. I was working for my great friend Judy McGrath. And I've always been a huge comedy fan. And I also, was desirous of, trying to figure out whether I could fly one of those things on my own. And so I threw my hand up and said, hey, can I do that? And I was able to do that, and that was great. It was
So
awesome.
right from the start, you were the guy. You were the Comedy Central guy.
Well, not from the start, but pretty early. I mean, Comedy Central was around for, I don't know, maybe 2 years before I got there, but not,
What were they doing?
They were, well, truthfully, I'll tell you, there's a lot of Benny Hill reruns, there's a lot of bad, they did have Bill Maher's show. But the day I took the job...
Samantha's dad worked on that.
Yeah,
Politically correct in those days.
The day, so politically correct. So the day I took the job, I got a call from Bill's manager who said, congratulations, I've got some bad news. Bill signed a contract with ABC. He's going to be leaving here now. I'm like, well, I just got it. I don't need to get a shot at He's like, no. And then so I had a good part of a year to figure out what to do next. And that was the Daily Show.
Okay, so is it true that you were sitting around saying we should have a daily
Well,
show?
I mean, the truth is, the truth is, I felt that Comedy Central needed to have a show that was on every day, that was going to take a look at the world, be funny every day, take a look at the world every day. And I used to refer to us as we need our sports center, right? Because
And Craig Kilborn was a sports guy.
And he was a sports guy. So.
And so how did you?
I will. I'll do a little. I'll do a little self promotion. So, Comedy Central just renewed Trevor Noah through 2020, 22 maybe, whatever it is, and he's doing a great job.
Yeah.
And I texted him. I said, "Hey man, congratulations, you deserve it. So happy for you." But I said, selfishly, I get to say I hired every host of the Daily Show through 2020. So I hired them all. So Craig, so I come up with this idea, then we had to hand it off to Madeline Smithberg and Liz Winstead, who basically, sort of helped fill in spaces on the Daily Show. And I was watching SportsCenter, and Craig was the late night guy. He was sort of the snarky late night guy. And I remember talking to an agent and saying, hey, this guy on ESPN I like, can't remember his name. He kind of has like a little bit of a Dennis Miller thing going on. He goes, Craig Kilborn is my client. And he's available. And it was just like that fast. So,
wow, some things are just meant to be.
There it was.
Okay, so then how did you happen upon... I'm assuming you saw Jon Stewart.
Well, Jon Stewart, I put Jon Stewart on MTV. So the original... So John did the show you...
Short Attention Span.
Yeah, which lasted, a short time. But John had come to my attention when I was at MTV, and I put him in a show called... A really bad show that he hosted called You Wrote It, You Watch It. Which is better left. It was lasted a minute and a half. John was the host, but we were in love with John, and we did a talk show with Jon Stewart. We did the Jon Stewart Show, which actually left MTV and then went into syndication for a while through Paramount.
I kind of remember that.
And that was like John's first sort of,
Yeah.
But so I had a relationship with John that goes back to MTV.
Okay.
And so Craig was in a couple of years. And then Bill Maher, I get a call one day, and I'm like, he's going to CBS. I'm like, wait, what? So, the search, went on for Craig's replacement. And, honestly, at the time, John had been out here for a while in Los Angeles. He spent a season writing on Larry Sanders. And there was some speculation that HBO might continue the show with, Larry's... the Larry Sanders character would leave his show, and then Jon Stewart would be like.
I think I remember.
And there was like a minute where that was like
I remember that.
And so part of me felt like it's like so John was very hot. Plus he was on top of that, he was legitimately always being talked about, and as the heir apparent to Dave.
Yeah.
But now. Craig had come in and taken that back job, so that wasn't available.
Right.
And truthfully, I didn't approach John about the Daily Show because I wasn't sure I'll give you some juice. Who I approached? Who I talked to and turned it down for Jon Stewart?
Who?
Jimmy Kimmel.
Wow.
Jimmy Kimmel was the co-host of Win Ben Stein's.
I remember. Oh God, I used to love that show, and I loved it because of Jimmy Kimmel.
Yeah, and he I remember.
Ben Stein was cute too.
Yeah. Super smart Ben. Anyway, so I remember John's
Why did Jimmy turn it down? Why do you think?
You'd have to, that's a good. I remember exactly where I was. I was having dinner with him and his first wife, and I'm pitching him the thing, and he was whatever it was. He wasn't buying. He didn't want to do it. The Daily Show wasn't the Daily Show then. And by the way, and here's the reason I didn't think Jon Stewart would do it, because we were Comedy Central. It was like, it wasn't the coolest thing yet. we were getting there. I mean, South Park was on the air, and The Daily Show had gotten some heat, but it was still
You brought South Park
emerging.
in.
Yeah. And I remember thinking, like, John's not going to do this. Like, he's not coming to Comedy Central to replace Craig Kilborn. He's going to replace David Letterman one day.
Right.
He did replace David Letterman one day, and he did it through The Daily Show. So somebody at some point called me, a guy who was a manager who was working with him a little bit at the time, said, I think John might be interested. You should call him. Called him up, took him out to lunch, and that was that.
So why do you think he made that choice? Because he was the
he clearly saw a opportunity, and he saw a platform and a venue that he could make his own, and he really clearly, I mean, of course he did, and he saw like a diamond in the rough, and that's why he's Jon Stewart.
Yeah, that's pretty great. That's pretty great. All right, so all kinds of other things. So now that's a huge success for you.
It is. So now I'm riding all the, yes.
So now you're just Comedy Central.
I'm just Comedy Central. Yeah,
okay.
And South Park was huge.
Yeah.
South Park just came out of the gate screaming, and again remains to this day still going. And so all of a sudden I became.
You got any stories with South? How did that start?
I was in Los Angeles. I was at our LA offices, which were in Century City at the time. A woman named Debbie Liebling, who was Comedy Central development executive at the time, says, I got to show you something. And she pulls me to the conference room, and she puts this VHS into the tape machine. And she shows me the now infamous and famous and brilliantly hilarious Spirit of Christmas short.
Yep.
And I watch it, and I thought it was the funniest thing I'd ever seen. And I said, she said, what do you think? I said, you need to run that again. and she played it again, and I said, again, sort of on one hand instinctually right, which is we need to be in business with these guys. But I was also wrong in that I said, like, well, we can't do that, but we need to be in business with guys. But so I was right about being in business with guys. I was wrong about it because they did do that and more.
So what was your feeling? Why did you feel we can't do that?
Because it was so. I mean, you have to really.
But you should describe it because not everybody has seen it.
Oh God!
Really? Is that true? Okay.
Go to the internet and folks and find it.
It's Jesus versus
It's Jesus versus Santa Claus with a special guest appearance by Brian Boitano. What would Brian Boitano do? It's brilliant. Still to this day, still one of the funniest things ever. Handcrafted. There was really cut out, so it wasn't even animated yet.
It was really.
But you have to remember, so you have to go back to this is 1996, 97.
Pre-internet.
And again, this is pre-internet. The edgiest things on television are probably The Simpsons.
Definitely.
In Living Color. Howard Stern's, getting a lot of heat for what he's doing on AM radio.
Saturday Night Live.
Saturday Night Live, but Saturday Night Live was kind of tame. These were the off years for Saturday Night Live. Truthfully.
That's true.
I mean, I shouldn't say that, but but the world was a different place.
Yeah.
And it was a but as I said then, as I like to say now, every day something comes out and just pushes the culture forward, right?
Yeah.
So that was South Park's turn, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I do remember the night before we put it on, so we were a joint venture. So the great part about that was I worked for two companies, two different people basically, Tom Freston and Viacom and Jeff Bugis at Time Warner. They were great guys, brilliant guys, smart guys, the best guys. If you're going to have two bosses, I had two of the best. But they were, because it was a joint venture, they couldn't really tell me what to do. Because the other guy had to agree.
Yeah.
And by the way, they basically let me do whatever I want. They had big jobs, they had other problems, they just were like, make it better. So South Park comes along and I show it to both of them, and they both got it, and they both liked it, and it has occurred to me that if I only worked, if Comedy Central had only been owned by a single company at the time, because again, life was different in 1996, 97, maybe somebody would have said to me, I can't put that on.
So it was to your advantage that
it was.
And
I remember springing up out of the sleep, this is a true story, the night before I put it on, in a cold sweat thinking, can I like, is this legal? Like, can I get in trouble for this? Now, the great thing about cable was we were not governed by the FCC, so we could do whatever we want as long as an advertiser was willing to buy it. For the most part.
Was there trouble with that? Did you have trouble getting advertisers at the beginning?
We did, and I said to my sales guy, I go, look, I'm doing this. He's like, no one's going to be in it, and I go, look, we're doing this, and if it works, they will come along.
Yeah.
And it worked pretty quickly. Now, the truth about South Park, it's changed a little bit because the world's changed, but it's still true to a certain extent. Not everybody wants to be in it from an advertiser standpoint, but those who do, will pay a premium.
Okay,
Because
so when you very first started,
Right.
did you have any advertisers?
I'm sure there were people in it, yeah, but probably, crappy,
Crazy Eddie or something.
Yeah, well, yeah, low rent.
Right.
Probably early on low rent. Although, and we just didn't have a lot of great advertisers to begin with at Comedy Central in those days. But the people that, the studios would come in, that was later. Look, people who wanted to reach young guys would pay a premium. So the studios, soft drinks, sneakers, different things. But then there were a lot of advertisers who didn't want to go near it. So, I get it.
Okay, so you get South Park, you have the Daily Show. Okay, so
Then I get lured to Hollywood to run the Fox network, the broadcast network. Yes.
Oh, I didn't even know about
Yes.
that.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, actually, so I did run the Fox network, but I did not run Epix.
Oh, okay, sorry.
No, that's somehow I've seen that. I've seen that. Yeah, I've seen that. That's trailed me a little bit. I don't know how that got out on the internet, but I never had. My apologies to Mark Greenberg.
Yeah, it's on your wiki page.
So I got. I was lured to as a kid growing up watching 3 networks.
Fox was like Fox.
Well, there
was
wasn't
like,
even a Fox.
There
It was
was
ABC, NBC, CBS when I was growing up.
Oh yeah, but I'm even a little older than you. There was WPIX and there was WOR.
Well, those were local stations.
Right, those
They
were
were
local.
they were just
They
completely
weren't Fox.
independent. Yeah,
Right,
they were completely
right,
independent.
right,
There were only
right.
3 networks growing up. So
Right.
the dream of running a network was always in the back of my head. And I sort of fell prey to that and came out here to run the Fox network. It was not my best decision, probably.
Well, okay, so give us some dirt on that. Why?
No, just
But now this is the first time you're in. No, you were Comedy Central. You were network head.
But this was different. Brought big difference.
Yeah, Fox is big,
and
yeah.
certainly then.
Yeah.
Huge difference between broadcast and cable.
Okay.
They're basically a different business.
Okay.
And I was a cable guy, and I was a cable baby, and I'd grown up in cable, and so I would say 2 things. I would say ultimately probably not the right place, although
Because
it just did not play to my strengths, and I didn't quite get it. And I was look, to be honest, I was a little ambivalent about it at the time.
why'd you do it?
And I think I would do it again. I did it because it felt like the next logical step.
Yeah.
But the truth is, I probably could have stayed in cable and continued to grow. I was at a joint venture, so I was a little bit like, well, I don't work for Viacom anymore, and I don't work for Time Warner anymore. And this is not, the South Park guys have heard me say this. So, if I had known South Park was going to last 20 years, I would have never left. But I was like, oh my God, I put like the biggest show on. Like, how much bigger could it get, right? And all of a sudden, somebody's thrown on this opportunity and some money, and it just felt, and then I'm like the guy who grew up on network television,
right?
And you sort of think like I grew up like, oh, I want to be, Fred Silverman or Brandon Tartikoff,
right?
Those guys. And so I was like, okay, maybe I should do this. So I did, and it was.
So what did you champion on Fox?
I was only there for 14 months.
Oh, okay.
And I have my claim to fame was Malcolm and Bill.
That's a pretty good claim to fame.
With our friend Gail.
Yeah,
which is how I met Gail.
That's a pretty good claim to fame.
Yeah. So, and that was, it was a script that was at another network that nobody, with a guy nobody believed in or cared about, and somebody handed it to me, said, I think you like this, and I read it, and I thought it was the funniest thing I ever read. And I was like, I'm going to make this. And again, I don't know if it was going to be a hit, I just know I liked it. And
okay, let's stop for a second, because you've already had South Park, you've had The Daily Show, you've now had Malcolm in the Middle. What I'm hearing you say is that these are all things that appeal to your sensibilities.
Yeah, well, you have to start there. I don't
think everybody does. I think there are people who make business decisions.
That's true, and I think that's true. And I had the luxury and good fortune to work at networks that were directed at young people. I was still a young person in those days, and so I was as much the audience as I was somebody who worked there. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I generally started with, I was never I was never the kind of person that went like, well, I think the audience will like it. It had to start with like, do I think it was interesting and did I like it?
Did you ever put something on because you said, oh, the audience is going to like it?
Sure, you did it all the time.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. And rarely works.
Can you think of an example?
Like anything I put on that wasn't South Park or The Daily Show. I mean, there's millions of them. No, but you go like, oh, it's like, the audience is, 50% women or 60% women. So, well, women will like this. And the audience likes shows about X. Well, this is a show about X. And it's like, of course, this will work, right? Because we match up all the boxes. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
It doesn't work that way. So, but anyway, Malcolm in the Middle was, nobody wanted to do a single camera. Nobody wanted to do, single cameras were not a thing then.
Mm-hmm.
They were out of fashion. Nobody wanted to do a show where the kid is the lead.
Yeah.
They're like, it's a Nickelodeon show. Even after we did the brilliant pilot, and it won an Emmy. The pilot actually won an Emmy.
Wow.
The network, the people I worked for, wanted to kick the guy off who created and ran the show. I'm like, he is the show.
Oh,
what are you doing?
my.
I had to fight for that. Anyway, and Bryan Cranston, of course, came out of Malcolm in the Middle. Anyway, so that was my little claim to fame. I sort of got out of Fox, I would say, with my reputation and dignity intact for the most part.
Okay.
And dusted myself off and moved on.
And the next step?
I went to work at the USA Network
Ooh.
for Barry Diller.
Woo! All right, that gives me that gives me woohoo. Okay, that's a weird.
It was,
that's
but
a weird
I needed a job, so it was time to go back to work, and they needed some leadership, and they were just getting, this was at the sort of front end of USA getting into, I would say, quality scripted programming versus kind of like the cheesier stuff, Pacific Blue and the stuff they'd been doing for years. And,
so
the strategy that Bonnie Hammer, truthfully, after I departed, really ran with and made great, and made.
So
USA.
what did you make happen there while you were
A
there?
show called Monk with Tony Shalhoub.
There you go.
Yeah. So and again, just when I got there, they didn't have a lot of development. They didn't have a lot of scripts. That was one of the things they had, and there was a woman there named Jackie Lyons who was very passionate about it and wouldn't let it go, and also believed from the start that Tony Shalhoub should play the role. And we went, and Tony, at that time he was doing a lot of movies, and was very skeptical that TV wasn't cool like it is today. USA Network was not cool at all.
Right.
And he basically turned us down, and we talked to every other actor in Hollywood. We actually cast somebody else and hired him, and then ended up firing him because he came in for a read. We're like, okay, that's our guy. Then he came back to read with somebody else after he already had a job. We're like, oh my God, it's not our guy. And we...
How'd you get Tony?
We went back to Tony, and we were like, we started throwing a little bit of money at him, and just really great. And he finally said yes. So
I think there's something to really being wanted and knowing that you are really wanted.
Yeah, although I gotta again remember, in 2001 or 2 when this was, again, like the premium scripted cable shows were not a thing. Yeah. USA was not any place anybody wanted to be, anybody good or cool wanted to be.
Right.
And it was a challenge, but we got done. And so things we get into. So the US, I was there for a couple of years, and it won't be in the most.
How did that feel for you as a career move? Having been at MTV, where you were so passionate,
right,
and happy, and then you go to
USA.
Yeah.
I mean, it was different. Although I got to build a great team there. I loved. Bless you.
Excuse me, I'm having like an allergy fit right now. Okay.
I really loved my team there. Got to bring. I actually brought in some people I worked with at MTV and comedy.
Excuse me.
All right.
Yes.
All right. And it was a little different.
Yeah.
But coming out of Fox, which was a bigger, broader type network. This wasn't Fox at all, but it was big and broad was the target. So I had so it wasn't at least it wasn't the first time I was doing that. And it was a little bit of a sideways move.
Okay.
But like I said, I was kind of mid-career, and
How old are you?
How old am I now?
No, then.
Then I'm probably
'Cause you're still
40 something.
Okay.
It's like early 40s.
Mm-hmm.
But it was I love those kinds of jobs.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I'm going to do this and see what happens. And so that was about another 3.5 years or so.
Okay, and so
then they got sold.
Okay.
So USA, Barry Diller sold what was called when I got there USA Studios, which was a little movie studio in the network and sci-fi, back to at the time what was the Vivendi Universal. Then Vivendi,
I don't even
right,
know that
left, and then it was just Universal, and then NBC, Comcast came in and bought USA. So all the Comcast guys got the good jobs. So I was time for me to move on.
Okay.
So my very great colleagues, friends, mentors, bosses, Tom Freston and Jim McGrath, said you should come back and run Comedy Central, and so I did. So and then I was there at Viacom from what was that? 2004 to the end of last year.
So now you're this head of this huge conglomerate of networks.
Right.
Was that still a creative job for you? What was that job now for you?
It's funny, you know what? My kids all the time say, "Dad, what do you do?" like, yeah, I know you're the president of the network. You know, so the truth is a lot of things, and it's very, you know, on any given day in those jobs, it could be, you know, you could actually be sitting in a pitch meeting, or you could be sitting in a corporate budget meeting, or, you know, or anything in between, you know, and it could be marketing, and I mean, I said I'm responsible for everything, but I go, but to make them understand, I said, here's what I really do. If you want to know what my job is, I manage people and I manage processes. So that's the sort of broadest, simplest way I can do it. I'm there to try and get everybody to do their jobs better. And so part of that.
But you're still championing shows and making.
I am, but I'm not. You know, I mean. Inside
Amy Schumer was.
Well, so what happens is when I mean, look, my relationship with my the guys, people who work for me, the program or the network presidents. You know, we have an ongoing dialogue. So they come in like, I'm thinking about this show, I'm thinking about that show, anything. But they're the ones who are on the ground, who are taking the pitches, who are developing the shows and making the pilots. You know, sometimes they'll show me stuff, sometimes they won't. Sometimes they'll show me when they get to the finish line. Sometimes they'll still want my opinion a little earlier. Than what it is. But when they get to the finish line, and we go through what we call like a green light process, right? Which is they want to put on the air, which means spending a bunch of money. So that's when I formally have to weigh in.
Right.
Right? Like, I think we should do this, or I don't think we should do this, or I don't think we should do this, but why do you think we should do this? Because I don't see it.
Did anybody try to hard sell you anything that you were resistant to that you ended up giving a green light?
Oh my God! Every day. I mean.
So can you name something that was like something you didn't fall for right away that became a big success?
God, oh my God! There's so many things. You know, I'm a born, you know, and in my job I sort of play the skeptic. Like I'm supposed to be like the guy who sort of like, you know, takes the other point of view. And
what is that called?
The devil's advocate?
No, when you have the one guy who's the easy guy and the other guy is the hard
good cop, bad cop.
So you're right. So you're the bad cop.
I'm not the bad cop. I'm the guy in the suit. So you know, I remember, you know, I'm always like, is it good enough? Is it funny enough? You know, and here's what, you know, many times somebody has sat with me and said, you know, I want to do this and I believe in this and I think this is good. I think we should do it. And I said, you know what? I don't really get it. I'm not sure I would do it, but you do it. Let's see what happens. And I've been rewarded many times. I'm also never the guy who would say, if it doesn't work, I'm never going to come back and go, you know, I was right, you were wrong. Just move on.
Okay, so give us an example of a show that you.
I remember thinking, like, for instance, you know, I felt like, you know, I was like, was Key and Peele sort of edgy enough? And they certainly had their edge, but you know, the pilot they made was like a little sort of softer, broader. I was like, are they edgy enough for us? And you know, Kent Alterman, who, you know, shepherded that, is like, absolutely, if they're funny, it's great, and I believe these guys, and we should do it. Okay, go do that. Key and Peele. Jordan Peele's the, you know, he's probably the hottest director in Hollywood right now.
So a couple things I want to ask you. One, so everybody out there watching, many people have projects that they are passionate about. Is there any advice you could give for people who are preparing a pitch, for people who are honing an idea, who are...
Be prepared. Be prepared to talk about where the show goes beyond the pilot. You know, you need to really be able to see a season out, 2 seasons out, 3 seasons out, really be articulate about it. Never ask, what do you want? You know, tell them what the show should be. They'll tell you later on, you know, but, you know, like, and never say, like, what are you looking for?
Okay, yeah. So I have a question for you. So many times people say liken it to shows that already exist. Is that something that you guys want? Okay, this is Curb meets Girls meets Sex and the City meets... Do Suits want that conversation?
You know, it could be helpful depending on how smart your suit is.
Yeah.
But I think let them say that. Let them go, oh, it's a little, instead of, I don't know, 'cause it just sounds so cliched and sort of look, at the end of the day, you want, what you really hope is your idea stands alone as something new, fresh, and original.
Absolutely.
And by the way,
everything old is new again. Yeah.
And there are no new ideas, of course, but we see every day people put spins on, on traditional stories and narratives and forms and make great stuff. But, you need to be prepared, you need to be passionate.
Okay, so tell me about...
Be the person with one idea, like nobody loves, like, if you don't like this, how about this?
Ooh, that's good to know.
I never think that's a good thing.
Go in with one killer.
You gotta go in with one killer, you can always come back. But like, don't make it seem like, you're, because it makes it seem like you're not committed to it, you're just a salesman.
Although, you know what, a lot of agents will say, make sure you have 5 other ideas so that if they ask you what else you got.
It depends what kind of meeting it is. It depends what kind of meeting it is. If you're pitching a show, I've been in things where people come in pitching a show, they see it going south,
so
then they go, and they go, how about something else? If you're going in for like a meet and greet and to, sort of meet an executive and sort of like, hey, you haven't met me before, I'm a writer, and then I think you talk about several ideas and broad ideas, but clear, like I said, sort of see the show, where the show's going, to be able to, immediately articulate where they go in episode 2, if not the rest of the season, the arc, and just be prepared.
Is it all the verbal pitch? Will you actually read if they put something together?
Absolutely. People, if there's something to look at, I don't know. People read that stuff. And if there's a visual thing that works. What I used to, there's a show on Netflix called American Vandal. Have you guys heard about this thing?
I haven't seen it. But...
Ask your kids.
Yes, I have seen
it. Seriously funny.
It's a genre bending.
Yes. Yeah. And so those guys came in to pitch Comedy Central, and even before they got to the actual pitch, they sort of like had us on the floor laughing so hard with their introduction, which was a wildly produced thing.
Can you
like
say the premise?
Oh, the premise is it's in a high school, and somebody is drawing dicks on cars in the parking lot.
Okay.
And it's a parody basically of that murder.
It's like Making a Murderer.
Making a Murderer, yeah.
But it's in a high school, and it's a mockumentary.
It's a mockumentary,
yeah.
It's
really
brilliant.
Looks like a documentary.
Anyway, it was the best. It's one of the best pitches I've ever been in. Because first of all,
So what'd they do?
Well, they blew the doors off. They produced this, which you don't have to do. I mean, this was a little bit like, a lot of people try and come in and, they want to, curry favor, and so they're gonna do things. Well, no, they're just gonna do things, to make you feel like a big shot or make you feel like. But these guys produced this tape. About the 2 people they're going to be pitching, which were myself and this guy Kent Alterman, and it was drop dead funny.
What did they do? Give us tell us.
It was basically, and they were putting our heads on all these different footage, but it was basically the story of like them coming in and pitching, and then Kent and I being brilliant enough to say yes, and then the show going on to great success. But it was brilliantly produced. It was crazy funny, and it was hilarious, and it was kind of, and then they got to the pitch, and the pitch was great. Wow. And of course we lost to Netflix, but it was just a great, I mean, you can blow the doors off like that.
Wow.
And they did. But it depends who you're talking to, and
Any other great pitches you can tell us about? Anything else that like really was memorable for you?
Pitches?
Yeah.
I remember the South Park guys coming in. They made the pilot, and it was a little disappointing. We were all like, it wasn't like as funny as we wanted it to be. And I remember, they flew to New York, and they came into my office wearing I should have kept it, because they gave us something. They wore, they said they grew up in Colorado, and they didn't have letter grades. They had check plus, check minus, and they came in wearing check minus T-shirts. And then they went back to the drawing board and kind of sort of rejiggered the pile a little bit to become the great hysterical pile that is, and the rest is TV history. But
Check minus is cute.
check
I like
it.
it.
Yeah. You know, I've seen some of the worst things. You know, I mean, I've been pitched some of the absolute worst ideas ever. And
So
and
what
then
do you
Okay,
say
so-
when you're sitting across from somebody?
you
and
try and be you try and be thoughtful and nice and respectful, and it's everybody deserves respect, and then you politely, I mean, I never say that's the worst thing I ever heard, but you politely say, that's not for us, or we're
Okay,
going
so
in a
now
different
have
direction.
you turned down? Have you had a horrible pitch that you turned down that went somewhere else that ended up being a monster hit?
Probably not a monster hit, but I could probably remember some things that, there's probably some things that I know there's some things we didn't pick up that, or we decided we didn't like, or went other places, and, this, that, and the other thing. But no, not anything that was a monster hit.
Well, that's good. You don't want one of those.
No, but, people, that happens too.
Yes,
Not, as I like to say, the job of trying to find, hit programming, if you can hit 300, you're that makes you
You're
a
a
Hall of
superstar.
Famer, yeah. And that, because, 7, 8 out of 10 things you do are just going to fall flat on their face.
Mm-hmm.
That's just the game.
Okay, so here you are at this stage of your life. What's next for Doug Herzog?
That's a good question.
What are you passionate? Do you have passion?
I
right
do.
now?
I'm still passionate. I'm passionate about TV content. I'm passionate about music. I've become passionate about traveling. A lot of
Do you have
traveling
a
this year.
blog? Do you have a music blog?
I blog like once in a blue moon.
Okay.
I blog like at the end of the year. I do like a little list of my favorite songs of the year, and I'll write a little thing about it, which is more an exercise for me. I don't think anybody really reads it. I'm always very, very charmed and delighted when somebody actually reads it and says they read it. But my guess is, I would say there's probably less than 20 people actually got through the whole thing. I do it more for me than anybody else. And then if every once in a while, if something happens in pop culture, and it's usually inspired by one of my musical heroes passing away, which we've had far too much of, I might do a little blog post. But no, I spent the last year traveling. I had a great time. As you heard at the top of this, I left college, went right to work, and so I never got I never took like a lot of time off, and so I just wanted. There was a bunch of boxes I wanted to check off, so I did.
So what were your favorite places on your
Every
trip?
place I went to Jamaica and Cuba. I wanted to go to Cuba and Havana for a long time. And I was glad I got there because I don't know what's going on now.
Yeah.
I'd never been to Asia, so went to spent 3 weeks in the Far East, and it was great. Hong Kong, Thailand, and Japan. I went on a 15-day road trip with some buddies, like a southern, sort of like civil rights / music road trip through the South. Which was amazing. Really, that was one of my favorite things I did. Did like a baseball tour, big baseball fan, so I did like a Rust Belt baseball tour with the buddies. We went to Detroit, Cleveland, Pittsburgh. You can drive those all. Cool things to see there, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and, the Motown Museum in Detroit, and the great Andy Warhol Museum in Pittsburgh. Went to Israel, never been to Israel. Went on a great trip to Israel. Spent some time at the beach. Went to some national parks. I'd never done any of the national parks. Went to I just did it.
You had a lot of living to do.
I had a lot of living to do, man. My attitude was like, use it or lose it, and I want to get out there and do these things. And I was thinking about all of them for a long time, and I actually am sort of proud of myself. I was like, everything I want to do in 2017, I did.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're at 2018.
And now I don't know.
So
I need to plan for 2018.
Do you have a blank sheet of paper?
It's kind of blank right now. Yeah.
That's kind of exciting though, because
Listen, a little scary.
it's scary. But my life coach, Jeremy Stevens, who was on Everybody Loves Raymond, he took it to Russia and made it a big hit. Jeremy's amazing.
Oh, okay.
He wrote on the original Firmware Tonight, which nothing
better than that.
So anyway, Jeremy says that allowing space for things is a really important thing to do.
Well, I got space. I got plenty. There's a lot of space happening in my world.
If you could have your highest dream, and maybe you don't have one right now, but is there something that if you could create your magic right now, what might it look like?
It might look like me, like playing, in a small room playing records. Like I really just want to be an FM DJ. So that was my favorite job I ever had as a college DJ, and I would go back and do that in a minute.
Louise started Premier Radio. So she's a.
Maybe you can find me a gig. I've been told I have a good radio voice.
You do.
You do. You have a great radio voice.
I get asked, "Are you in radio?" Like we got was when I was 18. No, to be determined. I'm not done. People go, "Are you retired?" I go, "Well, I might be retired. I just don't know it." But I said, "No, I know." I go, "I'm out of work. I'm not retired."
Yeah,
so
I don't see you as retired.
Yeah, no, I'm not retired. The world's changed dramatically. Sort of taking a look at what's going on out there, and there's beyond the sort of world I was in. There's now this world of streaming video, right? Mm-hmm. Which is sort of one bucket.
Podcasting.
Well, it's podcast. All my kids think that podcast. Like the world is not even a podcast for me. And then there's the world of like digital media. And
how do you feel about digital media?
It's interesting.
Mm-hmm. Is it something that might call to you?
Yeah, I think I've been thinking a lot about it and trying to spend some time sort of, and see if there's a there in general, see if there's a there for me, vice versa. But, I do believe, it reminds me to a certain extent about like a little bit like the dawn of cable television.
Absolutely, it's exactly what it is. That's what I was just thinking.
And, there's some interesting new brands out there. And so it's interesting. It's, we'll have to see. But I'm certainly as I'm interested both professionally and as a consumer. And there's a lot of people doing some cool things. And
as you pioneered and championed cable, I could see you being a pioneer and a champion on new media. Only time will tell. Well, if you got a job out there. Anyway, Doug, thank you so much for being
fun.
Our guest.
Thank you.
So you got a lot of stuff to take away, people out there, as do I, a lot to digest. So the big takeaway.
You gotta be a little lucky.
You got and the luck.
Gotta be a little lucky. I mean, I always tell this to certainly young people. Unless you're Michael Jordan or Michael Jackson or Steven Spielberg or Steve Jobs, right, or just somebody who's so undeniably brilliant and talented and gifted that they're just going to get there anyway. The rest of us, most of us, gotta be a little lucky. Gotta work hard, right? Gotta be good at what you do. Gotta want it. Gotta be passionate. Gotta work harder than the next person. Gotta go for it. Gotta be smart. You gotta be a little lucky. Let me ask you about this last component that I've been thinking about lately. Is that people that are good to work with, people that are responsible, that show up, that do what they say they're going to do, that follow through. That's important. Isn't that like if you have a bunch of people and aren't you going to? And they all have the smarts and the talent, and isn't that person that's really nice and easy going to be the one you're going to choose? Yeah. Well, yes. I mean, I used to have a saying that, anybody who worked for me could tell you this. And this came from starting out in the MTV culture, which was a very particular kind of place. And, our attitude and my attitude going forward after that was no assholes allowed. And now, sometimes they make their way in, and they generally don't last long, and, it's not perfect. But, I'm big on, everybody needs to work together and get along and treat each other right. And, that's certainly what I always try to do. But you also want to win the game, right? So it's not always that easy. I like to think you can be successful in show business and still be a nice person. I like to think that I was successful in show business while maintaining, the identity of like a nice person. From everything on social media, everybody was saying when they saw you were going to be on the show, "Oh, greatest guy, best, blah, blah." So there's no, I just always treated people, and it doesn't matter who they were. I just treat people the way I want to be treated, and I don't care if you were the intern or the assistant or the star of the show. Everybody should be respectful, and so that's a way to go through life. But and then after that, you gotta do all the hard work and right place, right time sometimes, and be a little lucky. Okay, so do all of those things. Hard work, be lucky, don't be an asshole. Don't be an asshole. And so thank you so much again, Doug. That's right. And handshake, I like that. What was it? I just saw something where they were saying where the woman did the handshake and how unusual that is. But anyway. Fist bump? I go fist bump? So you have to be careful with me to do fist bump. I know. So we'll be back next Wednesday, and Louise and I will be in Henry Jaglam's home. And Henry's a filmmaker that's been around forever. He edited Easy Rider, which is crazy. He was on Gidget, which is bizarre. One of the great midnight movies of all time. Oh. Henry Jackman, like Jade. A Safe Place. What? No. Okay, well I don't know which one you're thinking. Look at his filmography. So Henry also had lunch with Orson Welles every day and has a book out called My Lunches with Orson. He made Orson Welles' last film.
He discovered David Duchovny, early Jack Nicholson, Tuesday Weld, Karen Black. I mean, he is a colorful creature, and he directed me.
He's gonna have better stories than me.
No, you have great stories. Anyway, thank you all for being here. We'll see you next Wednesday on The Road Taken.